The NCAA is filled with a bunch of sue-crazy athletes who are trying to sue to be professional, lifelong college students. We'll talk about that next on the ProZone. Welcome to the ProZone. I'm Matt Roberts. So name, image, and likeness and transfer portal have created a culture of sue-crazy athletes who are used to getting their way when they're growing up with participation trophies and never being disciplined the way they're supposed to be disciplined and getting their own way on sports teams because their parents are helicopter parents and complain about a lot of things. They're now suing to get their way on everything. It started back with transfer portal, okay? You had athletes who were allowed to transfer one time and sit out for a year. They decided to sue to be able to transfer as many times as they want. Okay, so there gives us the current monstrosity of the transfer portal. Then you have athletes who've sued about eligibility. They've sued about name, image, and likeness money. They've sued about everything you can imagine. And the NCAA is so afraid of lawsuits that they're going to cave to these lawsuits as much as possible. Example, on transfer portal, when the athletes sued, as I've discussed before, an injunction was filed against the NCAA. And because the injunction was filed about 2 years ago, in the injunction, it said, well, you can't let anybody transfer. So the NCAA said, well, we can't have that because it hurts all the other athletes. So we're going to cave and let everybody transfer as many times as they want with no penalty. And here we have it. Athletes transferring every year, 4 times in a career, regardless of how bad it hurts them, regardless of how few credits transfer, they transfer with them, whether they transfer to another school, they transfer so they can get money. That's the whole purpose of chasing dollars. Now, some guys are getting cut from teams and have to enter the portal that way. And some athletes legitimately, as I discussed in the previous show, are not happy with the situation for other circumstances. Okay, not just because they're not playing, but because they're being treated badly or they want to be closer to home. But this is how it's done. You have to enter the transfer portal, and it hurts your opportunities because too many people are in the portal. Well, now you have people, not just because they sued for the portal, now they're suing for eligibility. So they want to play more. And the main reason they want to sue to get more time to play in college is because they want to make money. They didn't sue before until name, image, and likeness became a thing. And then they went, if I sue, I can get another year of school or 2. And then I can get more NIL money from the school or just no money at all since I wasn't getting any before. And the NCAA can cave and my lawyer's going to get money because lawyers love to chase money. And my agent will get his 20 to 30%, but who cares because I'm going to get about 70% of that. Even though they're getting ripped, it doesn't matter. They're going to sue. So what we have is a culture of athletes who are professional students. They're on the Tommy Boy plan. Anybody seen the movie Tommy Boy? The Tommy Boy plan. What's the Tommy Boy plan? Well,
did you hear I finally graduated?
Yeah, in just a shade under a decade, too. All right.
You know, a lot of people go to college for 7 years.
I know. They're called doctors.
Now you have athletes who are just suing. Here's one that's legit. Okay, this one's legit. This guy, I used to call him Tommy Boy Bowman last year, but let's be honest, he had a legit reason. Okay, Bowman, he's from Oklahoma State. Okay, starting quarterback Alan Bowman, that's his name, not Tommy Boy, was granted a waiver from the NCAA for his 7th year of eligibility in the 2024 season. So this is last football season, not 2025, but the year before that. Allen met the criteria. OSU says he met the criteria for an extension for his eligibility due to his season-ending injury in 2019 combined with redshirting at the University of Michigan. So what was his career? Let me see here. It says, before transferring to the Cowboys, he spent 3 seasons with Texas Tech Red Raiders, 2 with the Michigan Wolverines, One of his best seasons came at Texas Tech in 2018, but you got to keep in that window, okay? In that window, during that time, he had the injury in 2019, and you had COVID. So in 2020, you can get another year of eligibility. They granted that to you in college. NCAA did that. Had a show about that back when it was happening, okay? So that's the gap year, basically. So they gave him an additional year of eligibility, and then he wanted that one more year because of his injury in 2019, and that's a circumstance where they will give you another year of eligibility because it was a legit injury. So he got another year. That gave him 7 years. Okay, you got your 4 years in a red shirt, plus a repeat year, that's 6, and then you got another, because for the COVID, and then you got another year for your injury, that's 7. But that's it. He didn't sue to get more, he just got another year of eligibility, okay? But he was on the 7-year plan, which I found kind of funny, and I called him Tommy Boy Bowman, but it really wasn't the case. So now, let's fast forward, shall we, to the poster child for Tommy Boy syndrome, and that would be our friend Diego Pavia. So Diego Pavia, the poster boy, look at his journey and how many schools he went to. This guy, he played for New Mexico Military Institute in 2020 and then led them to a national title in 2021. So he played there for 2020 and 2021. Then he went to New Mexico State, which is an NCAA school. Okay, so we've had 2 years already at a junior college where he actually played football. Full-time student, played football. The clock starts ticking there. That's what happens. If you're a full-time student, and especially if you play football, your eligibility clock starts to tick. Now he goes to New Mexico State, and he was there for 2 more seasons, 2022 and 2023. So that's now 4 years. 4 years of eligibility, and then he went to Vanderbilt and played his 5th year, because you get 4 years in a red shirt, played at Vanderbilt in 2024. Pavia sued because he wanted another year of eligibility, and he claimed that his junior college years didn't count against his NCAA, or shouldn't count against his NCAA eligibility, because he wasn't playing for the NCAA. But the rules are very clear. If you play for a junior, go to any school, and you enroll as a full-time student, your clock starts to tick. That's just how it is. But he sued because he wanted what? He wanted the name, image, and likeness money. He wanted another year of it. Pavia knows. He's not, I don't care how, Pavia did a really great job. Fine. That was in college. In the pros, it's a totally different animal. Very few athletes make it to the pros. The pros is a whole different world. So for Pavia to try to get in the pros at 5'9", I mean, Doug Flutie was back in like, what, 1986 or 87? That was a long time ago, okay? That was, what, 40 years ago. Quarterbacks don't usually fly. 6 foot, you're lucky to play in the NFL at 6 foot. Lucky. Barely a chance, because the linemen in front of you are huge. You got a guy who's 5'9", because they're listed as 6 foot, but he's not 6 foot. So he sued. NCAA doesn't want to fight that, so he got his way, right? And they said, okay, you get another year of eligibility. He got his year of eligibility. Well, that follows, let's follow that up with a new wrinkle, and it's right here. From complex.com via Sportico. It says here, along with 26 other former junior college players. This is current. This is as of December 31st, 2025. Pavia has filed a federal lawsuit seeking the chance to continue to play college football beyond the current NCAA eligibility limits. Still? I thought he was done. The case filed in Tennessee asks a judge to temporarily block the NCAA from enforcing its existing rules while the lawsuit moves forward. So basically what they're doing is asking the judge, this is what they did with name, image, and likeness. I'm sorry, with Transfer Portal. Asking the judge to file an injunction, or they're filing an injunction to stop with the rule, so that no longer can the rule enforcement move forward while it's being litigated, okay? And then what they want to do is, opens the door for people to play forever, And the NCAA doesn't want to fight a lawsuit. They just don't, because it's out of control, and they don't have the money for it. They don't have the time for it. It's going to set tons of precedent. If they fight every lawsuit and the lawsuit goes in the favor of the athlete, that is called setting a precedent. And if the precedent's set, that means future lawsuits will then refer to the precedent, to the decision made on that previous lawsuit, and say, well, they ruled in his favor then, so they're going to rule in the future. They may as well rule in this one too. That's the problem. That's what a precedent is. So the NCAA doesn't want that to happen. So here we have a bunch of guys who don't want their junior college time to count. So what does that do? That gives you athletes who are, now let's look at Pavia, okay? 18 years old, you go to JUCO. Not good enough to go to Division I school or anything, so you go to JUCO. You're there for 2 years. So 18 to 19, 19 to 20. Then you go to New Mexico State, 20 to 21, and up to 22. Now you're 22 years old. Then you go to Vanderbilt for your last year, you're 23 years old, right? 23 years old, you've used your 5 years, you sue again, now you're 24 years old. You're a 24-year-old and you're trying to get more years? Seriously? Let me do some comparisons here. I played football in high school, 17, 18 years old. Graduated when I was 18, so 17, 18 years old, playing varsity football. I went to college, went to the prep school for West Point, and I turned 19. Me at 19, once I finally matured into the position and really got good and got strong and was coached properly, I would kill myself at 18, because the maturity level is much higher and your physique is much higher and your strength, your discipline, all much higher for most athletes. Then I went to West Point. You're playing there. Now, if I was 21 at West Point, okay, just say 2 years in, I'm playing against myself at 18, I would decimate myself, totally decimate myself at that age, because I was a totally different person. I'm an actual adult male, a fully developed adult male, strong, disciplined. But when I go into the military later, looking at myself at 25 years old, 26 in the military, right? Peak time, 25 to 27 window. I would destroy myself from 21, kill myself, because I was that much stronger, mentally tough, physically tough, disciplined. It's a total different animal. So when you get a 24-year-old athlete playing against an 18, 19-year-old athlete, right? I'm not going to say boy or young, they're men, okay? But they're young. A 24-year-old athlete, 6 years older than an 18 or 5 years older than a 19-year-old athlete, it's a completely different animal. And there comes a point where you have to cut it off. Like in other organizations, you age out of certain things. Okay. I grew up around indoor winter color guard. My father taught it. My sister was in it. My father judged it. So I grew up around it. And the indoor winter guard, you have an age out. At 21 years old, you have to go to a senior guard. So you're only allowed to compete until you're 21. Once you're 21, you're out. So you have your high school guards, and then you have your other guards, your independent guards. So high school, you graduate, then you go to independent guard, and you can be in there for another 3-4 years. But because of maturity, they age you out. So it's a fair competition. NCAA is allowing 24-year-olds or older to play against younger athletes. Well, if the younger athletes are good enough, it's not a matter of good enough. It's a matter of maturity and development. The NCAA, college is supposed to be for development and advancement, development and maturity. You're in high school, you play in high school, you go to college, and then you develop to the next level. They get you ready to go into the pros. Okay. By the time you're done and you're about to graduate, you can then go to the pros. If you feel you're more developed, some develop faster than others, and you're able to enter the pros early, then cool. People like Kobe Bryant or LeBron James who enter right away out of high school, they're able to make it happen because they're that much more mature. Okay. Physically, mentally, whatever it is. But you can't have 24, 25-year-old athletes playing. And it's going to get worse and worse, because if you look at, let me find it here. If you look at a recent story, just came up, let me pull this up. You got an athlete, Ben Holmes, the post reads on X, 31-year-old former Tarleton State quarterback Ben Holmes has received another year of eligibility from the NCAA and will return to Tarleton State next season. 31 years old. He's going back to college. Now, let's look at the history of Ben Holmes. Give me a second here. Here it is. From thebiglead.com. Ben Holmes. He has not stepped on a college football field since 2019. While he was at Tarleton State, he put up 62 total touchdowns, which caught the eyes of scouts to get him taken 4th overall in the 2022 USFL draft. He was drafted by the USFL. That's a professional frigging league where you have to sign a contract to play. He played for the USFL in 2022. Okay? So drafted by the USFL. Didn't last. He got hurt on April 1st of 2022. So what did he do? He went north to the CFL, Canadian Football League, and played for the Montreal Alouettes and the Edmonton Elks. And then he ended up landing on the Toronto Argonauts in August 3rd of 2022 and played one game that season, but he played in another professional league in Canada for three different professional teams. So not just the USFL, where he ended up getting hurt, but for Canadian football, where he ended up getting hurt again. But he decides, I want to go back to college. So the following year, Toronto cut him after training camp. I'm sorry, it wasn't hurt, he just got cut in 2023. His journey continued overseas to the Vienna Kings, and he signed with them November 21st of 2023. During the 2024 ELF season, Holmes appeared in 10 games, completed 187 of 301 passes and 34 TDs and 5 INTs. Okay? Last season, threw for 2,800 yards, 40 touchdowns, 5 picks. Earned him an ELF All-Star honor. He played for another professional team. So he did what? USFL, played in college, drafted by the USFL, signed, went to Canada, played for 3 different teams, okay? Got cut, played for an international team, right, that was in Vienna, and played there for, 2 seasons? And now he's going back to college. This is here. Tarleton State quarterback Ben Holmes has been granted another year. How? How is it possible? Oh, I know how it's possible. I know how it's possible because I called NCAA legal and I got the skinny. See, these other guys who talk, they don't always get the skinny. I do. Okay. So another year. So he's 31, folks, 31 years old. And he's going to go back to play for Tarleton State. Seriously? I mean, seriously? Is this where we are? College football? Is this where we are? Look, let me pull up a clip here. Okay. It's exhausting to me, but let me pull this up. There's another player named James Nagy. Okay, James Nagy. Now, James Nagy, I'm going to talk, before I play the clip, I want to bring this up, and then I'm going to play the clip. James Nagy is a whole similar circumstance. Let me find the article on Nagy here. 1 second. From ESPN, as the calendar flips to 2026, the college basketball schedule turns to conference play, blah, blah, blah. Ultimately, Nagy's latest example of a growing trend of professional players opting to pursue college basketball because of the lucrative opportunities that come with revenue sharing and name, image, and likeness, or NIL. How did it get here? Well, let's go over that. Never previously enrolled in college. Spent the past 5 years with FC Barcelona. So Nagy never played an official NBA game. Okay, but he was drafted by an NBA team. However, he was the 31st pick in the 2023 draft, and he did participate in that year's summer league. So didn't play an NBA game, but he's playing on a summer league team, so he's part of an NBA team. The minute you enter the draft, you should not be eligible. Okay. Then later was part of a 3-team trade that brought Karl Anthony Towns to the New York Knicks, and the Knicks still own Nagy's draft rights. So he played a couple years in Europe, and now he's playing for Baylor. Baylor signed him, and he's playing there. Now, is he eligible to play for Baylor? Based on the rules, Yeah, but right on the edge of it, maybe if he falls within that 1 year, maybe he's given a year. But why? And coaches are concerned about this. A lot of coaches are concerned, but they're not concerned that he doesn't meet the eligibility requirements. They're concerned of what it means, the precedent that it sets. Remember the word precedent. The precedent that it sets is, well, if they're going to allow players to play overseas or get drafted and then come back and play in college to get that NIL money, then anybody could do it. Anybody can. And any sport. Now, bear with me. Why? Why are they concerned with that? Like, how is that going to set a precedent? Well, here's the deal. I called NCAA legal. I had to find out. Okay. I asked them today. I talked to a gentleman over there and I said, look, let me talk about Najee. What's the deal with him? And they said, well, that's taken on a case-by-case basis. I said, what does that mean? Basically, they evaluated his situation, as I read you, and yeah, he kind of skirts that little eligibility window. I mean, personally, if the rules are, if you're drafted by an NFL team, you lose your eligibility, that should apply in basketball too. And I asked the guy, doesn't that apply to you? He says, well, it should. I'm like, well, he said, well, this is a case-by-case basis. Again, I'm like, okay, so because of this situation and where he is, they've chosen to give him the eligibility. But I dug a little deeper. Now, they're not going to be too committal, but I got them to say, got this person to tip their hand a bit. Let's put it that way. He said, Charlie Baker, the NCAA president, Charlie Baker, he came out with a statement. Okay. This is directly from his X account on December 30th, 2025. Let me read this to you and then I will decipher it because I actually was on the phone with the rep from legal and I deciphered it with him on the phone and I'll tell you what he said. Charlie Baker writes, the NCAA has not and will not grant eligibility to any prospective or returning student athletes who have signed an NBA contract, including a two-way contract. Translation, Najee never signed a contract, apparently. As schools are increasingly recruiting individuals with international league experience, the NCAA is exercising discretion in applying the actual and necessary expenses bylaw to ensure that prospective student athletes with experience in American basketball leagues are not at a disadvantage compared to their international counterparts. Okay, so basically they're allowing teams to continue to draft from international leagues. Rules have long permitted schools to enroll and play individuals with no prior collegiate experience mid-year. Okay, fine. While here's where it kind of reveals itself. But it's hard to understand until you break it down. While the NCAA has prevailed on its vast majority of eligibility-related lawsuits, recent outlier decisions enjoining the NCAA on a nationwide basis from enforcing rules that have been on the books for decades without even having a trial are wildly destabilizing. I will be working with D1 leaders in the weeks ahead to protect college basketball from these misguided attempts to destroy this American institution. Kind of straightforward if you get it, but if you don't get it, let me explain it. That last paragraph gives it up. In this situation, it's what it is. They made an exception for Najee based on circumstances, but the real thing comes in the final paragraph, which is they're afraid of lawsuits. And I read that to the NCAA legal rep and I said, so basically what you're saying is they don't want to get sued and they're just going to cave to the lawsuits because they don't want to get sued. And he went, quote, exacto. That's what he said, exacto. And I said, how about that? And then I said, so if this is the case and you're allowing players to come in from international play or teams that have already been drafted, does that not set a potential precedent for former college players who are drafted by NFL teams but didn't sign the contract doesn't that set a precedent for them to go back and play in college? Or if they're not drafted and they miss the draft, because if you don't get drafted, you've entered the draft, you give up your eligibility. So if you don't get drafted at all, you're not picked up by a team, you can't go back to the pros or to college from the pros, right? Because you've entered the draft. But does that set the precedent? And he went, mm-hmm. I went, there you go. They're not going to say a lot, but he tipped his hand. And there it is. Gave me what I needed. So this is what we have, folks. We have people that are suing the NCAA for everything. It's a sue crazy culture. Pavia and his ridiculous lawsuit because he wants another year because he wants to make his money. You got the guy from Charlton give it another year because they're fear of lawsuit. Now they're so scared of lawsuits that they're going to give in to everybody that they can give into. And then the NCAA legals, I said, how do we fix this? This college, NCAA is destroyed. It's ruined. There's no way to fix this. And he said, well, there is a way to fix it. And I mentioned this in the previous show. There's two ways of fixing it, okay? Number one is you have to get someone to intervene. Number two is you scrap the whole thing, okay? And kind of rebuild it. Actually, number one was have everybody go pro and sign contracts, which is a good way of doing it, okay? You have people sign a long-term contract, you avoid this issue. You go to college, you sign a contract. That's it. Said that in the previous show. I stand by that. The other one is to scrap the whole thing and rebuild it from the ground up, which is never going to happen. But then the NCAA legal person came in and he said, we're actually looking for legislation to be written. We're hoping some politicians will step in and they will say, you got to stop people. They got to stop people from suing the NCAA. Now, let me play something for you first. Okay, I'm going to play a bite for you before you dive into that. Okay, this bit here is, I'm not a big fan of Jay Bilas, I don't know, Bilas, whatever his name is. I'm not a huge fan, ESPN reporter, but he recorded this. But let's play what he posted January 5th on X.
There's been a lot of talk lately about James Nagy, a 6'11", 24-year-old player from Nigeria who's been through the NBA draft process. He was drafted number 31 in that draft in the second round, but never played an NBA game, never signed an NBA contract. He's played in some NBA Summer League games, but he's been playing overseas in Spain, and he just enrolled at Baylor as a mid-season transfer. He's never been enrolled in college as a full-time student before. And a lot of coaches have come out saying this is not a good thing. One thing I think the coaches are missing out, they just don't know the rules. This is not unusual in that a mid-season transfer, this has happened a lot before, and the NCAA rules allow it. If James Nagy had signed an NBA contract, that would be different. But you can play professional basketball, both in the United States and overseas, and play on a professional team as long as the money you take is essentially your expenses. So this idea that somehow LeBron James can retire from the Lakers and play for Ohio State, that's not within the rule structure. Look, if you don't want a player that has played professionally on a professional team in Europe or on a professional team in the United States like James Nagy, then don't recruit him. What a lot of these coaches are saying is we don't want to play against him. And that's not something that I'm good with. I don't agree with that. The NCAA used to have a rule. It was called the year in residence rule. So when you transferred, you had to sit out a year before you were eligible. The reasoning was you had to get used to your new school and take time to get used to your...
No, that's not the reason. I'm going to cut him off now because he's going to rattle on for a while. Okay, he made his point. Bill's an idiot. He's an idiot. He thinks he knows what he's talking about, but he really doesn't know what he's talking about. I already explained it. Does it fit? Does it skirt the rules? Yeah, but the real reason, because I got it from NCAA legal. I didn't just sit there and opine like this clown. I actually went to the legal and said, why? They're afraid to get sued. That's the reason. They're afraid to get sued. The teams don't want him to play because he's an older guy who's had professional frigging level experience. And he was drafted by an NBA team. 31st overall, second round. Who cares if he didn't sign the contract? You enter the draft, you are totally just eliminate all your eligibility. That's the bottom line. Just like if you go into the NFL If you enter the NFL draft, I'm going to say it again, enter the NFL draft from college, even if you don't get drafted, even if you don't sign with the team, the minute you enter the draft, eligibility gone. That's it. But this guy's like, oh, well, and then he's saying about, the whole reason the year of residency is to sit out so you get used to the school. No, you sit out for a year because it's not fair. What it did was it stopped people from transferring. Like, you could be playing for Alabama, and then you could be playing for another an opponent of Alabama's. You leave Alabama for 1 year until you go to Auburn, and you go to play for Auburn. The very next year, you're playing against your previous team right away, or transfer the same year and then play for that team, which is happening now with transfer portal in a lot of cases. Okay, you're playing for a team, you go to another team, and you're playing right away. Instead of that, well, the sitting out year is designed to dissuade you from transferring. Because if you transfer for a year, you have to sit out for a year. If you transfer to a school, you have to sit out for a year. That's what it is. It's just to dissuade you from transferring because you don't want to lose a year of eligibility by sitting out. That was the rule. It wasn't to get used to a school. But this is an idiot. So, this guy. So, no, the real skinny is they don't want to get sued, guys. They don't want to get sued. So, back to the point. So I had to play that, entertain that goof because he got his plays online and he's off base. When I mentioned his name to the NCAA legal, they went, oh yeah, I know James Billis. I know him. Yeah, it's like, yeah, they're not really thrilled with that clown. So anyway, let me continue on. When I talk to the NCAA, I'm not taking sides, okay? I get it. You want to play and all that stuff, but I'm looking at it from to preserve the integrity of the sport. You can't just bring in people. And when he said, well, LeBron James, he gets a salary and he decides to leave and go play for the NCAA, that's illegal. That's out of the rules. Is it? What if and LeBron James decided, I want to go back and play for another year and I want to go for my doctorate degree? Or I never went to college at all. So that's right, he never went to college at all. So I want to go play for a college. What if he sued? What if he sued? And then someone's going to go through and say, well, all it takes is one attorney, or one lawyer, one judge to go, well, Antitrust Act, Sherman Antitrust Act, it's not fair. He didn't play in college at all, so he has all that eligibility still. And yeah, granted, he's 40, but you got a 31-year-old playing at Tarleton State that already played for the USFL, so the precedent's been set. Yeah. So Beal says what he's talking about because it could be done if he sues. It's you don't know. Oh, Matt, there's no way. You don't know. That's the problem. That's the issue we're at right now. So the NCAA legal, they want to get. They say this representative I spoke with said that they want to get legislation on this. So legislation. Well, let me look at legislation. I'm going to tap it. I want to do a whole other kind of show on this more in depth, but some politicians have already jumped in with their opinions. I have let me copy this real quick here. I got a link. Senator Maria Cantwell of Washington with co-sponsors Cory Booker from New Jersey and Blumenthal, another guy who, well, let's not talk about Blumenthal, that guy. Anyway, they've introduced, this is back in September 29th of 2025. They've introduced the Student Athlete Fairness and Enforcement Act, the SAFE Act. What does it mean? It creates first ever student athlete rights and protections, levels the competitive playing field for all schools, and supports women's and Olympic sports. So how is that? Well, the act for the first time gives all athletes name, image, and likeness rights, establishes uniform health and safety standards, protects scholarships, and requires agents to register with the state and abide by clear contract requirements, including a 5% cap on fees. The bill provides new opportunities for schools to increase revenues for all sports by amending the Sports Broadcasting Act and ensures all schools, not just the biggest and the richest, benefit from those increased resources. The legislation stops collectives from engaging in pay for play by requiring that any payments to students are for legitimate use of their NIL. For the millions of fans who care about the college sports teams, the act requires football and baseball games to be made available for free in schools, local media market, and tackles transfer portal concerns. That's just a bunch of mumbo jumbo, is what that is. That's just some politicians just trying to flex to make themselves look like they're doing something, and it absolutely makes no sense whatsoever. Just reading that summary, and I haven't even gone in depth in the bill, but I'll go more in depth in another show. But they did mention one thing in the title. It says supports women's and Olympic sports. Okay, I'm going to take out the women's sports and just go with Olympic sports, because they talked to a reporter broached the topic with President Trump in the Oval Office.
What do you think about the NIL, the deals that are being made with players?
I think that it's a disaster for college sports. I think it's a disaster for the Olympics, because, we're losing a lot of teams. The colleges are cutting a lot of they would call them sort of the lesser sports, and they're losing them like at numbers nobody can believe. And they were really training grounds, beautiful training grounds, hard-working, wonderful young people. They were training grounds for the Olympics. And a lot of these sports that were training so well would win gold medals because of it. Those sports don't exist because they're putting all their money into football. And, by the way, they're putting too much money into football, because colleges don't make, even the most successful universities don't make that much money. And you can't pay a quarterback $14 million to come out of high school. They don't even know he's going to be a very good player. I mean, they've tried a couple of times. $14 and $12 million. And a couple of deals like that, and the most successful colleges are losing money.
Name, image, and likeness is a bad thing in its current incarnation, because what it does is the settlement, the House versus NCAA, forces the teams to have $20 million cap to spend on their athletes, basically, as close to it as you possibly can get, right? Some schools don't have that kind of money, but they got to spend a lot of money. So when they're spending more money, they have to get it from somewhere. The thing is your basketball and football teams, those are the ones that make the money. They're the big money teams, and they're the ones that are paying the athletes big money. Okay, some ridiculous amounts, which I'll go over in a short little bit online at one point. So I'll post on that. When you hear that breakdown, it's ridiculous. So anyway, that money is also trickles down to the other sports. So when a team earns a whole bunch of money, then that football team or basketball team, they end up funding other sports, fencing, swimming, golf, whatever, okay? Different sports, Olympic sports, right? Equestrian, whatever it is. They fund that. And those sports, those lesser sports, they're the ones that are Olympic level sports. Football is not an Olympic level sport. Basketball is. But that's already been co-opted, because in 1992, which I grew up watching that one, we had the Dream Team. And the Dream Team came in and they said, well, you know what? Other countries are allowing some of their professionals, quote unquote, at that time, professionals to play. So let's bring in our pros. So they have professionals with their college players. Let's bring in all our pros with one college player, Christian Laettner. And they brought in the best. Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Charles Barkley, Michael Jordan, Patrick Ewing, David Robinson. I mean, Moses Malone, a phenomenal roster, the greatest team ever put together. And they killed people by 40 points. And we said, look, see, we showed you what we can do. If we really want to do it, we can spank you. The problem is there was big marketing in that. And they said, let's keep doing that. Let's have more dream teams, because that's really good money making for us. And your college players didn't get the opportunity, so they lost that opportunity to play and make it an Olympic sport from college to the Olympics. They lost that opportunity. So basketball is not really an Olympic sport anymore from college. For the pros it is, but not from college. But then your other sports, golf, equestrian, gymnastics, swimming, that's all Olympic stuff, fencing. And that's stuff that some schools are actually cutting now. So, because they can't afford it, because all their money has to go to this name, image, and likeness stuff, right? All this money they're being forced to pay. So they have to cut these other sports because they can't afford them anymore. That's a problem. That's a problem. So that's what NCAA was saying. Look, we need legislation to fix this. And when Trump's saying, yeah, that hurts the Olympic sports, when they talked about it in the Oval Office, he's right. It hurts the Olympic sports. I never thought about that till he mentioned it. I said, oh my God, you're right. It hurts the Olympic sports too. Holy crap. And it says it right here in this proposed legislation as a kind of a footnote. So something has to be done. And it's going to be, I hate when you get politicians involved with anything, because like this thing I just read, the SAFE Act, it's just, they don't know what they're talking about. They don't know. They just try to check boxes to make themselves look good. It looks good on their resume. It looks good for their voters. And they can say, look what I did to help college sports. Good for people that, politicians love to get kickbacks. They do. They love to get money. You got millionaires who are, they're alumni of these schools, and they know these guys, and they're donors and friends of the program. And they say, well, we'll pay you X, Y, and Z as lobbyists to help you pass a certain bill to go our way. It's a hot mess. So they got to be very careful. But I'll talk a whole nother show about this stuff. I want to go more in depth with the legislation and getting the Congress involved or politicians involved, which I really don't like doing. But honestly, how else are you going to fix it unless you make everything in terms of contracts? Have the players have to sign contracts, 2 to 5 year contracts, back end the contract to lock them in and pay them more, as the longer they stay, the more they make. That's the only way to really fix it. But until then, people are going to keep suing. The NCAA is going to be afraid of lawsuits, and the precedent's been set. 31-year-old goes back to Tarleton State, who already played for the USFL. You got James Najee, who played for pro teams that was drafted in the second round, 32nd overall. He's back playing in college now. Pavia sues for another year of eligibility and might be going for more, along with like 26 other players who have now joined the lawsuit. 26 other players to try to set a precedent. That's what they're doing. And this is where we are. So what's going to stop it? Ooh. When will it ever stop? Who knows? I mean, I fully expect to see a couple things possibly happening. One, I expect to see some NFL player, somebody who was not drafted, who unsigned free agent, sue to try to go back to college to make no money. I expect that to happen within the next year, maybe 2. I expect it to happen. I also would not be surprised if Bronny James, who left college after 1 year and got signed by the Lakers and is part of their G League, signed to the G League, they're going to say, well, he's in the G League, but he did play a professional game, but he's going to sue to get back in. Precedent's already been set with Najee. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm just saying, will it happen? Who knows? Do I want it to happen? No, but kind of yes, so I can see the blowback. But at the same point, I wouldn't be surprised. What do you think? Do you think these people should we let them just play? Is there a cutoff? The minute you declare for the NBA draft, should you eliminate your eligibility? The minute you play overseas as a pro or for a pro league at some level that says the word professional on it, should you be allowed to go back to college and play again? I'm curious to hear what you got to say. So leave me comments. Appreciate your feedback. I'm just curious. And we'll find out more about it. I'll keep track on this stuff and get more information. So until next time, thanks for watching. I'm Matt Roberts with the ProZone. Know your goal. Hey guys, thank you for watching the ProZone. Make sure you check back for more episodes. And if you haven't done so already, like, share, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss what we have coming up next.